it's a manual for the human beings. Because it is also considered that the human being is the most complex machinery ever built. Isn't it? Most complex. And they're trying to mimic that nowadays with the AI, artificial intelligence, how much ever they want to, right? But nonetheless, this particular yantra or the mechanism, which is self-producing, isn't it? Like, the two yantra come together and the third yantra gets generated. So that's why it is quite complex, and there are many, as I said, like, scientists, saints, philosopher, everyone tried to understand, and they had their own kinds of interpretation and lot of things going around, right? So if you go and search in Google, like, how many types of translation, of course there are multi languages there, but in English itself you'll find hundreds of, like, translation of Bhagavad Gita. And you may wonder, like, why is that? Because everyone wants to comment on that, and we'll talk about why this particular Bhagavad Gita should be read. Because it has a specific title called Bhagavad Gita as it is, that you will not find in any other Bhagavad Gita book or any other translation that you may find it in the market. Okay, so we'll talk about that. So now, as promised, what we are going to do is, there are about leaving aside the index and the glossary, okay, there are about, if I remove the glossary and the index, there are about 767 pages. Okay, and there are some pictures in between as well. Okay, so I highly recommend to have your own copy of the Bhagavad Gita. If not, then you can borrow from us. We are going to have a library also here of some of the books, and Bhagavad Gita will keep it plenty so that you can borrow. We are not here for sale. Okay, we are here to distribute. There is a difference between bechna or vitran karna. There is a difference between sale and distribution. Okay, so we are distributing the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita. Okay, so that's a very, very important term. And that's what I said, we are going to go and read each and every page. That is what the study group is all about. Study group is not about, like, somebody comes and, like, his, like, thought process and just deliver the lecture and go. That is not the idea here. Okay, the idea is I want to learn from you as well. Because I strongly believe that everyone who has come to this world has a unique purpose to fulfill. And that too in relation with God only. We may call God with the different names that we will study further in when we go deeper into the Bhagavad Gita. Okay? So we'll start with the very first section that comes. We actually started last time itself, but because we see there are quite a number of people who have joined us for the first time, so for their benefit, we are going to start again from fresh. Right from the very first thing, right after the index, what is the section? It is called the setting of the scene. Okay, so we'll start from there. Okay, and we'll discuss few things. And of course, in between, as I said, as Abhishek also said, anybody has anything to share, feel free to raise your hand. Anybody has even question to ask, feel free to raise your hand, because it's a study group. Okay. So now we'll go through this setting of the scene, and also I was very happy because, like, this particular area of Daisar, I must say that I'm sure it must have some spiritual connection, and definitely we have a beautiful temple next to us. So there is no doubt that the whole vibration around is so fantastic. And on top of that, I strongly feel and believe that there has to be some spiritual connection here, because the people whom we met, because, in order to bring people here, we were trying to, like, help them with the Bhagavad Gita and, like, distributing the flyers, right? And we were meeting with the people, and we felt that, like, the people were very welcoming, very warm, and, like, wanted to, like, respect, and also inquisitive that what this Bhagavad Gita is all about, right? And in fact, I was very happy to hear from one of the couple I met today, and they said, like, let's say if we miss a session, then how we will reconnect and what will happen, right? So we have this recording going on, right? So even if you miss any session, let's say next Saturday for whatever reason you couldn't make it because you have other commitment which was very much to be fulfilled for whatever reason, and you cannot make it, then we will post this video into the group, right? So that you will get to hear what everyone has contributed. So you will not miss your link. Okay, so your link will continue. So I just wanted to let you all know that we want to make sure that the end of this Bhagavad Gita, you all will feel nourished. You all will feel that I can see my life in a right perspective. That's the whole idea of this Bhagavad Gita. The idea of the Bhagavad Gita is not coming and somebody saying, oh, very nice. It's yes, we need to worship Bhagavad Gita, but the best worship of Bhagavad Gita is to open and read and discuss. It is said the small-minded people, they discuss people. Average-minded people, they discuss events. And the great-minded people, they discuss wisdom. So I must congratulate that all of you are great minds, including myself. Okay, so that we are discussing, literally it is important, right? What are you going to get discussing about people? People are going to die and they will leave. That's it. You're talking about the event, there's a big war going on, or there is some, GDP, this, that. It's required. I'm not saying that it's bad, but where we forget the most important thing is the wisdom, which is going to help us in our life to make our journey, human journey, right? Then we are missing the big point. So I'll start with a small story so that everyone can connect that why it is so important to study Bhagavad Gita, not read, study Bhagavad Gita. There were 4 friends, and they happened to go to New York to as a tourist, and they were very happy. And as always, some of you know that New York life starts after midnight, right? It doesn't start before that. So they were definitely enjoying all the nightclubs and everything, and then finally they reached to their hotel 6 a.m. in the morning, right? And for their surprise, it generally doesn't happen in United States of America that the elevator is not working. But for whatever reason, they had a big goof up and the elevator was not working. And their hotel, they had a room on the 100th floor, right? So nowadays, earlier it was 14 florid around here, right? Nowadays, all the buildings we see 30, 33 florid, right? So like that in US, long back, they had all these 100, 110 florid buildings and all those things. Now they said, now the lift is not working, but we got to go to our room, right? So what do? No other option, right? Climb the staircase. So they started doing that. So they reached the 20th floor and really tired and bored. So why don't we just start telling a story, right? So that it becomes really entertaining and things like that. So everyone, there are 4 of them, right? So one person started a story, very nice. They reached, and the story was long enough to make them reach 40th floor, after that 60th floor. And the 80th floor, now the turn comes for the 4th person to tell the story. So he said, why don't you tell a story? All of us now done doing the story. So you also, your turn. Said, yeah, but my story is a little sad. I said, it's okay. Now anyways, we have reached to the 80th floor. Whatever the story you have in mind will be entertaining to us. So just go ahead and might as well share it. Said, it's actually sad and a true story. And the story is that we have forgot the key at the reception. Right? So what does that mean? That means you can climb unlimited heights in your life. 40th floor, 60th floor, right? But if you have forgotten the key to success, key to satisfaction of your life at the reception, then no matter how many floors you are climbing, it will be not making that much sense. Okay? And believe me, the key to satisfaction, key to success, for anything you want to do in your life, believe me, Bhagavad Gita has an answer to everything. Bhagavad Gita has an answer to everything. Right from the school-going boys and girls, all the way up to the retired person who is really enjoying their life, right? And everyone is looking forward for that. And even older than that person as well. It is for everybody. Okay? And it is, as I said, it is irrespective of the religion. Religion is just a faith. You believe in some rituals and doing something. It is beyond that because it has to do with the humans. It has to do with the humans. Okay? So now without further delay, I'll start to help you understand that where and when and how Bhagavad Gita was spoken. It is important, right? Because without understanding where, when, and how, I think we'll not understand why it was spoken, right? So it is very important that let's first understand the setting of the scene, right? Where it was spoken and why it was spoken. So all of us may have seen the, like, the classic B.R. Chopra's Mahabharata and other stuff, right? So we all more or less know. So I'm not going to go into the Mahabharata so much, right? But I'll tell you in brief, like, what it is. No, that's okay. It's fine. I'm absolutely fine. Let it be. Don't disturb them. Let him continue. Okay. So in Mahabharata, we see there are two parties, Kauravas and Pandavas, right? But before that, actually, there was only one dynasty. It's called the Kuru dynasty, right? So in that, there were two brothers, Dhritarashtra and Maharaj Pandu. There were two brothers. Now, Dhritarashtra by birth was blind. Even though he is being an elder, right, eldest, he could have become the king. But because he did not have the eyes, in that system, he couldn't become a king. So obviously, the youngest one, the Pandu, became the king. But this person, Dhritarashtra, was so much attached to being a king. He somehow or other tolerated his younger brother being a king, and the things were going on. But the destiny has a different things written for Mr. Pandu or Maharaj Pandu, right? So he died at a very young age, and leaving his wife Kunti with 5 young children. They are called Pandavas. Why they are called Pandavas? Because they are the son of the Pandu. That's why they call Pandavas, right? And they were 5 in numbers. Now, Kunti had nowhere else to go but to come back to the kingdom of Hastinapur and take shelter. So sure enough, Dhritarashtra so-called welcomed them and taking care of them, because being their uncle, he needs to take care of them. But now, because in absence of a king, he was made as an acting king. How we have sometimes called acting prime minister or acting presidents, right? Because somebody is not available. So like that, Dhritarashtra was appointed as an acting king. And then, he had 100 sons, and the primary one being the Duryodhan, right? He felt that all these Pandavas are his obstacles in a path to he becoming a future king. So he wanted to eliminate that right from their childhood. So we know the episode of, I'm not going to go into the details of that, but he poisoned Bhima, they tried to burn them alive into the Lakshagra, and all kinds of things, they did somehow or other to get rid of them, right? And finally, the icing on the cake, as they say, right? They called them for the gambling match. And in that gambling match, sure enough, because they were really match fixing or whatever you want to call it, right? They were very smart how to play that gambling match and how to trick it. So they defeated Pandavas in the gambling match, and they had to go to Vanvas or live in the forest for 13 years. And see that interesting thing in those days, it was really amazing. Sometimes I get intrigued that wow, this is fantastic, and it is really fascinating. So what kind of a condition they have put across is there is a 13 years of forest living. Along with that, 12 years is for sure, and the final year, the 13th year, you need to be in incognito. That means you have to have a agyatvaas. If they identify you that, hey, here is the Pandava, and hide and seek, right? So if they find you, then your dan is again means you have to go and live in the forest for another 13 years, with the final year again being a incognito. So it's like an infinite loop. Whoever is in the IT, right? It's you just go into the loop again and again. So they really thought of those conditions to make sure that these people will be taken care forever, and they will not come back, and I can enjoy solely this kingdom, right? Now this was done, and then finally, to Duryodhana's surprise, they could successfully complete incognito, agyatvaas. And here comes on the 14th year, they come back to Hastinapur. And now the kingdom was supposed to be theirs, right? But just see the beauty of Pandavas. They were so humble, and they were so okay that, okay, you just give us 5 villages, okay? Because we are being a Kshatriya, we need to rule. We cannot go against our nature. We need to rule. So just give us only 5 villages. And Krishna, as a peacemaker, goes there. There's a whole story. I'm not going to get into that. And Duryodhana says, I will not give you the enough land to hold a tip of the pin. Can you imagine how much that land is? That much also he's not ready to give. So the war was inevitable. It was obvious that war has to happen at that point in time. And that is where both the parties, and it was like a world war. Because there were some kings who were supporting Kauravas, and there are some king who were favoring Pandavas. So they took sides of Pandavas, some, and some took sides of Kauravas. And then there was an interesting story comes again. I'm not going to go into the detail, but if you are interested, you can ask me later and we can discuss that. That at one point in time, Duryodhana and Arjuna had an option to choose, because Krishna says there are two options. Either you choose me, where I'm not going to fight, I'll be only on the consultant kind of a role or advisory role, okay? Or you can choose my entire army, which is huge, right? And it happened to be Arjuna chose first for whatever reason. There is a story behind that. And then he chose Krishna. It's not that first choice was given to Arjuna. And Arjuna chose who? Krishna. Not that millions of soldiers and millions of weapons and stuff like that. He chose Krishna. And Duryodhana was really smiling within that. Such a fool, you're just Krishna, and that too he's not going to fight. What are you going to do with him, What are you going to do with him? I got this army which is fantastic, and he showed externally, oh, I'm so sad, I got to do a second choice. Anyways, I'll deal with it. And he moved on, right? But Arjuna was very happy to have Krishna. So now Krishna going to play the advisory role. So what is the best way to do that? Is to become a Sarathi or a chariot driver for Arjuna. So he chose to drive the chariot of Arjuna. And that is where Arjuna says, Krishna, take my chariot in the middle of both the armies. I want to see who is out there to fight. Right? And that is where he sees all this gigantic army assembled. Of course, he's overwhelmed with that, but he starts seeing the familiar faces on the opponent's side. And that's where he gets perplexed. And literally, as we will read further in the Bhagavad Gita, he literally becomes depressed. And he gets all the symptoms of depression. His mouth's drying up. He couldn't hold his Gandiva and things like that. Right? At that juncture, he actually asked Krishna, can you help me? And that is where the Bhagavad Gita was spoken. Bhagavad Gita was not spoken in an AC room, okay, where everyone was comfortable. Or Bhagavad Gita was not spoken in an kingly assembly. Okay, or it was not spoken in the forest where bunch of saints sitting there and having some philosophical discussion. Bhagavad Gita was spoken at the world war. In the middle of the world war, where the situation is so tense, everyone is so stressed out. Right? At that time, the Bhagavad Gita was spoken. That's why this particular book was so relevant in the past, so relevant in the present, and it will remain relevant for thousands and thousands of years to come. Why? Because we have to fight a war every day. Every day. We have to make choices every day. And that is where this Bhagavad Gita is so relevant. Even for the students, because they struggle to make choices, they struggle to fight their enemies in terms of internally. So as the professional, so as the retired man, everybody has to fight this thing. And that is why Bhagavad Gita is so relevant. And that is why we are speaking here. So that's the setting of the scene. Okay, that's how the Bhagavad Gita is. So I'll take a pause here. If anybody would like to share anything about their understanding of Bhagavad Gita and other things. And then in the preface, we'll talk about why this particular Bhagavad Gita, and then we'll get into the introduction depending on the time permits. And we will always keep a watch on the time, because we want to make sure that we finish on time, because everyone has things to do after the discussion is over. So probably, I think we started today at around 7:05 or something? 7:05. So we'll sharp end at 8:05, no matter how critical discussion is, or how intense that discussion is, or how sweet that discussion is, will end at 8 or 5. Afterwards, we will have a nice prasadam. Of course, before that, we'll have a small prayers, which will again will help you to calm down from the discussions and everything else. And then we'll have a nice prasadam for everybody. So please do not go without honoring the prasad. And then we will disperse. And of course, during the prasad also, if anybody has any questions or anything to share, we are most welcome. And we also have experienced people. It's not just that I am the only experienced. We have all this group of people who are very well experienced. Some have spent around 5 years studying Bhagavad Gita. Some have spent 10 years. I have spent around 22 years studying Bhagavad Gita as such. Okay. So we'll have a nice discussion. And also, I feel that you are also coming is not as a fresh to me, because you are bringing your life experience, and also you have studied Bhagavad Gita in various forms, right? So each one of us is important for us in this discussion. Okay. So any comments or question? I will not say quick comments or question. We have ample time to study it nicely. Okay. So anybody would like to share anything before we get into the preface of this book? Okay, so preface is also very important. And by the way, somebody may wonder that 20 years, somebody is 5 years, somebody is 10 years. So are you to get bored reading the same book again and again, or seeing the same thing? But believe me, and you can ask anybody who had read Bhagavad Gita sincerely, each time you read, your understanding goes deeper and deeper and deeper. And you come with the newer and newer revelation, not different, but a deeper revelation. Okay? So that's why it is really an amazing thing. So anybody, Vedmurti Prabhu, Mohit Prabhu, anybody would like to share anything, or anybody from our enthusiastic audience as well? Yeah.
So I started reading Bhagavad Gita around a year back, I guess. So once it started, I just went on and I read around 40-45 pages. But every day when I used to read at least 4 or 5 pages or 3 pages, and slowly it kept on building. But every day, at the end of the day, I used to feel some sort of a guilt. Mm-hmm. So I was not able to understand what was happening, because I think in today's world, the way we live and what's written in the book, there was a lot of differences. So why basically that guilt after reading that book? I was not getting that answer, and then somehow it happened that Roshang asked me to join, and then I guess maybe I joined this journey. Mm-hmm. So I'm really excited to understand, why that guilt. Okay, I know I got certain answers in last 2 sessions which we had, but I'm still trying to understand why that guilt, because after that I couldn't read that Bhagavad Gita. So it was 40-45 pages, but after that I was not having that courage, to proceed further. My wife insisted me that go for it, let us see, let's do that. But then somehow it happened, and so that is one of the things. I'm just waiting.
Yeah. You will get for sure. You'll get for sure. So anybody would like to, help? What's your good name? So far everybody knows.
Hello everyone. Myself Amit Shri Girikar.
Okay. So anyone would like to help Amitji to understand why he is having a guilt? And there is no right or wrong answers. Okay. By the way, it's all about your understanding that you want to present. So anyone would like to make an attempt?
I can
Sure.
about this. Whenever we are moving somewhere in the jungle, and we lose the way path, we don't know exactly where we are. But in such time, if you continue moving, you are sure somewhere we will come out of the jungle. So like that, you have stopped at 45 pages. So you start continuing further. Someday you will find out now you are out of this, and you can see the light. This is my opinion.
Okay, good, nice. What's your good name, sir? So that everyone, this is because it's a huge group, so I don't want to have a introduction, because it itself will take a whole session, right? So, wow. So thank you, Madhavji. Nice explanation. Anyone else would like to try? Yeah, sure.
So I've heard somewhere that sometimes when there is so much of dirt in a room, there is a kachra.
So we try to broom it. So what happens when we try to clean it? So first time all the dirt gets spreaded in the air. So maybe because the books is so spiritual, so when we are reading it, all the kachra of our heart is actually cleansed and coming out. So we actually see it. So that could be the guilt or something, whatever we are feeling. Yes, that's what my.
Yeah, you want to try?
Actually, I don't have any idea about Bhagavad Gita, but the thing that he says is very relevant to me. It's like now in Mumbai's fast world, we all know that Bhagavad Gita has a solution for everything that we have, all the complications. So we read it as a target to complete this book, that I want to complete this book, I want to seek all the knowledge of this book. So with that target, we set up that we will read this every day. I want to read 3-4 pages every day. I want to gain this knowledge as fast as possible. So without even going very deep into it, we will just start reading and then we'll go on and on. If we read every verse like very deeply every day, maybe one verse a week, and we really understand the deeper meaning, then there won't be any regrets. But because we are so keen to learn all the knowledge, we are just going forward and forward. So maybe that is something that is making.
Good, good. What's your good name? Arya. Thank you, Arya. It was really nice explanation. Okay, anyone last, because we don't want to just go in the circles forever, right? So, anyone last would like to try? Maybe all of you can come a little near so that the some of them are still coming. So yeah, the little bit is that we're not going to dwell so much into this particular thing, but I can tell you from my experience as well that Bhagavad Gita is such a book. If you read it sincerely, it will show you the mirror. That means it will show you what you are currently, not exactly who you are. That we'll talk about that later, but it will show you who you are. And let's say you have a pimple on the face, right? And you see in the mirror, you don't want to see that, isn't it? It looks so ugly. So you feel like, why this mirror is showing me this? Like, you feel little grumpy and this and that. So similarly, that's what Bhagavad Gita does. It actually helps us to show or see that this is where I am. And as he rightly said, right? Because in our heart, there are so many things. I was at the wedding yesterday. It's really amazing, I'll humbly request each one of you, कभी भी शादी रहेगा किसी का ना, तो वहाँ पे जब भी शादी का टाइम है ना, उससे 2 घंटे पहले पहुँच जाओ आप. जब भी डेकोरेटर्स भी सेट कर रहा है सब कुछ, हाँ, तभी आप पहुँच जाओ. तो वहाँ पे आप जो सीन देखोगे ना, तो यू विल बी सरप्राइज, व्हाट द हेल इज गोइंग ऑन यार. Because the way the tables are, it is so yuck. It is so dirty. They just put a nice cloth on top of it. But underneath का टेबल अगर आप देखोगे ना, तो बोलेगा कि इसके ऊपर जो पानी पूरी रखा है वो मुझे खाना चाहिए कि नहीं खाना चाहिए. हाँ, just because they put all this facade, हाँ, on top of it, it becomes so beautiful. And that's what everyone is doing in this world. The table itself, which is the pure yourself currently. I'm not talking about the soul. I'm talking about you yourself currently. But just because we put so much of nice makeup, so much of nice polished language, and all those things, right? So then we appear so wonderful. Everyone says good morning. Yeah, good morning. That's why somebody said very nicely, अगर किसी को पूछना है कि आपका हाल कैसा है, तो एक बार मत पूछना. क्योंकि अगर एक बार पूछोगे ना, तो मैं तो हमेशा कहूँगा कि सब ठीक है. पर अगर दूसरी बार पूछ लिया ना गलती से कि हाल कैसा है, तो देन ही विल रिवील. एंड अगर गलती से 3rd बार पूछ लिया ना, तो आपके कंधे पे सर रख के रोएगा वो कि दिस इज व्हाट माय रियल हाल इज. हाँ, So we all want to hide. Like this wedding, it was such a revelation to me. My God, मैं बोला यार ये क्या चल क्या रहा है? You know, they put like so nice artificial flowers, like some facade on top of it. Everyone within 2 hours, the whole mess became so beautiful. And on top of that, it was a night, so all lights and all this jagmag mein, like the whole thing is covered so nicely. So similarly, यहाँ पे भी we cover up everything, but then Bhagavad Gita tries to uncover for yourself, for your good, for your this thing. So sometimes it becomes challenging. I can't accept this, I can't do this. But as Madhavji very rightly said, hang on and continue. That is where the solution is. Giving up is not a solution, isn't it? Right? Continuing is the solution. Okay? So now we'll, somebody put an alarm for 8:05, okay? Because we want to make sure that we end on time. Now we'll go to the preface. If you don't have any other questions or comments, okay? So we'll go to the preface. So in preface, Srila Prabhupada, so who is the author of this book? Okay, so we'll go a little bit into the author. It's very important that any book you read, you should know who the author is. Because without that, na, वो mood समझ में नहीं आता है कि why that person has written this book. What was his purpose? What was going in his mind while he was writing this book? Huh? So there are many people write books. I will not mention name, but they said like unless until 2 घूंट अंदर तक जाता नहीं है ना, तब तक मेरा पेन चालू नहीं होता है लिखने का. Means unless until he drinks like the tonic, what they call it, right? The intoxication, unless until he takes a little bit of pack, his pen will not start. Now can you imagine that person writing? It may be so flowery, as I said, it's going to be as good as this facade. It's not going to help you, believe me. But if somebody who is writing with an intention to help the audience, then it will be altogether a different ball game. Now this person, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, it's very important to understand when did he write, why did he write, right? So he is the disciple of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Some of these names gonna be foreign to you a little bit, but that's just tolerate that, okay? So this A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, he was born and brought up in Calcutta. He was a pharmacist, big pharmacist by profession. He had his own business, and then at the age of around 55-60, he actually took sannyas because his calling was so high that I really want to contribute something to this world. And that is where he started writing Bhagavad Gita as well. And this gentleman, when he wrote Bhagavad Gita, why did he write in English? Because at that point in time, Srila Prabhupada tried something to preach in Jhansi. But people were like, how we had this experience down there in the morning, right? We were trying to give away books. People were coming and like, they walk by as if we don't exist. Or sometimes some people says, it's okay. Some says, I have 2 Bhagavad Gita already at my home. So I wonder why the 2 Bhagavad Gita are sitting at the home. Maybe some preachy person like me may be going like, you must have the Bhagavad Gita. So poor guy must have bought it probably. That's the reason he may have 2 Bhagavad Gitas, right? But if you see more or less, the people were not interested at that point in time. I'm talking about like, early 60s, 1960s. And as we were all very much interested in the imported things, right? Everyone is interested in the imported things, like, iPhone, because it's like, you say like, if it is made in China, it's still okay. But if it is like, packed and like, designed in California, all good. It's so nice. So it's all about imported things. And because these saints of this world, they know, because their ultimate aim is to help people, right? So he said the best way, जैसे बोलते हैं ना कांटे से कांटा निकाला जाता है. So the same way he thought, if we really want these people, our people of India, to take the spirituality, take the message of Bhagavad Gita and really apply to their life. So he said the only way to do this is to make this knowledge a imported knowledge. Right? So how you can make this knowledge an imported knowledge is to have a stamp by the Americans and the Britishers. If they stamp it and they themselves practice it, then you may wonder, ये पूरा कुछ तो अलग चीज है. There's something different, but it's the same Bhagavad Gita. There is nothing different in it. But just because it is a stamp of a imported thing, right? So that is the reason Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, the spiritual master or the guru of A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, told him that you should write books in English language, give this message in English language, and go to the Western countries and spread the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita. When these people will take it, here they will automatically take it. Now, how he can go to America? At that time, it's not like here, right? Every Tom, Dick and Harry is flying to US, right? Nowadays, thanks to IT world, right? Everyone is going for whatever reason. In fact, I don't know whether you all know about the boom of 2000, right? The .com. They said literally the farmer of Hyderabad. I'm specifically calling the name, okay? The farmer of Hyderabad or the AP region. It's nothing against them, but their passion to go to America is at the next level. So they said even a farmer of Andhra Pradesh has actually gone to America as a Java developer. Not that he knew Java, how to code in Java and all these languages, but they fake it and they had gone. So what I'm trying to say, that was not the scenario in 1960s. It was very difficult. There were hardly any Indians living, right? Nowadays, if you go to some of the areas of America, you feel like you are in India. Like if you go to the New Jersey, specifically Edison, right? You feel like, there pan ka shop hai, everything is there, You feel like, मैं America में कहाँ पे हूँ, But that was not the case back in 1960s. He did not have a flight ticket because he was a sannyasi. So the only way to go, the cheapest way, is to buy ship. And by ship, it takes about 31 days to reach from India to America. I don't know how many of you have actually tried a sea journey. It's very, very horrible, okay? Even if you go to this, Gateway of India and do a little bit, 15 minute के बाद बोलेगा भैया वापस लेके चलो यार, सर दर्द हो रहा है. You get a seasick, it's very pathetic. Now 31 days where you can see nothing else but water all around you, right? And that too, there is a long story about Prabhupada, wanting somebody to sponsor his ticket, right? So, but that lady is Sumati Morarji Desai, and she was such a pious lady saying, Swamiji, you are now 70 years old. You go to America at this point in time. Kya karoge aap wahan pe? It's so cold. You will die. You are saint, live in Vrindavan and have a glorious death in Vrindavan, which is everyone is aspiring for. He said, no, my spiritual master told me that I must go to Western countries and preach this message in English language. So you please grant me a ticket. Don't worry about me. Everything will be fine. And then she grants the ticket to him. And then he knew one person in Vrindavan who had his son back there in Philadelphia. Okay. That family is called Mr. Agarwal. And that gentleman also got married to an American lady, Shelly Agarwal. Now, Srila Prabhupada goes on the ship, and in the probably 13th or 14th day itself, in the middle of the sea, he gets first heart attack. After a few days, he gets a second heart attack. And he writes a beautiful poem. He writes a beautiful poem on that Jaladuta, on the ship. Says that, my Lord, I don't know why you are bringing me to this land of unknown, right? We all call it the land of opportunity, right? Prabhupada is calling it the land of unknowns. What I'm going to do? How will I give your message, O Krishna? And he writes a beautiful poem. He says, you have given me the name Bhakti Vedanta, but I have no qualification. But I know only one thing. I have a faith in your holy names. So if you wish, you can make them understand what I want to give the knowledge of yours. And like that, he writes a poem, and finally he reaches. And of course, he would have got the third heart attack probably towards the end of it, right? But Krishna had a different plan. He reaches the Boston Harbor, goes to Philadelphia, and lives in this Mr. Agarwal's home. Now this gentleman married to a lady who is American, so their fridge is full of meat. Okay, and this Swamiji is a completely pure vegetarian and everything. So he makes his own cooking at the age of 70 there and lives there for some time. And this Mr. Agarwal, tried to arrange into YMCA at that time in US. There are so those YMCAs and other clubs and things like that. He arranges where some philosophers and some professors and people come. They appreciate Bhagavad Gita's knowledge a little bit, but not so much. Nobody was getting there, and Prabhupada was getting discouraged that what is happening? I'm here. I'm not able to make a single person as a student of Bhagavad Gita. So he says, I think Philadelphia is not a place. I must go to the capital of America. And at that time, the New York is the place in America, right? So he goes there. At that time, he did not know where to go. There, actually, he had a shelter in Philadelphia. But here in New York, he did not have a shelter. So he was literally living like a homeless person. He was literally sleeping on the street and that kind of a situation. And there are many times, because those were the days were called hippies. Once Srila Prabhupada was asked, what the hippies are? So they say something amazing. So I'll just give you brief description of the hippie means, they completely disregarded the society. They said, our fathers and forefathers, they have no idea, because they are all just wanting us to be what dhance mein dal dete na, they want to live as a stereotype life. We don't know to do that. We are the seekers. We want to find a meaning to the life. So they were trying to find the meaning of the life through music, through LSD, through drugs, and all kinds of things. People were having sex on the open. They were not wearing clothes. Some are wearing clothes and intoxicated, and those kind of people. And that's the reason probably you have seen the movie called Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, and that was completely represented true, but they did not give the right message that what happened to those hippies afterwards. That is an unfortunate thing of that movie. The Devanand who did that movie, the Dam Maro Dam, Hare Ram, Hare Krishna, right? They showed true picture that what happened initially, but they did not show the true end, what happened afterwards. That's what we'll discuss a little bit, if time permits today, or maybe we'll continue as well. So now Srila Prabhupada comes to New York, and all these hippies, coming, and there is a Tompkins Square Park. I happened to be in US for about a decade, so I was fortunate enough to visit that park, Tompkins Square Park, and I also visited the place where it actually started the movement ISKCON, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. So in this Tompkins Square Park, the same Hare Krishna mantra which we sang today, same tune, no different tune, same tune. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Same tune. Okay, he was singing. He probably had this kartals, what I was playing, and a little bit of bongo drum. That's it. He did not have anything else, not a fancy mridanga like this, nothing. But just because he was sincerely calling out the Lord's help, all these hippies surrounded him and started dancing and chanting in this tune. It was so amazing. And then they started inquiring, anything else to share, Swamiji? Do you have anything? Right? And that's where he started giving them the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita. And he said, the park is not the right place. Is there a way we can find something where a small storefront or something? And that's when in 26 2nd Avenue, which is as big as this place, that's where the ISKCON movement started. And today, we have more than 700 temples all over the world. That is the beauty of a person who sincerely tries to give the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita. That is where he started. And while this journey happened, when he started this storefront and this happened, he himself was instrumental in opening 108 temples. Srila Prabhupada himself, while he was alive on this planet. 108 temples. But to go through that, there are multiple attacks on him. Before starting even the 26 2nd, because all these people are drug addicts. They are coming in the beginning, sometimes they are nice because they have a different mood swings. Right? One person comes and opens with a knife. What are you doing? Blah, 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 something. And Swamiji had to run. Literally. So in those situations also he survived. Why? Because he wanted to fulfill the words of a spiritual master is to preach to these English people. And finally, people started taking up his message. Why? Because it was divine. And it was given by a person who was also divine. Because he had that sincere desire. You and I can also become divine if we have that sincere desire that I really, really want to help. I really want to study Bhagavad Gita very sincerely. And that is where we will see in the further introduction, very important, that you have to approach Bhagavad Gita not like any other book that you approach. You have to approach with lot of submissiveness, lot of inquisitiveness, and lot of eagerness that I want to learn from this book for my life. Not to have some information. You can get anywhere. Right? I can tell you Bhagavad Gita in 10 minutes what it is, and you'll be okay. If this is it, then I'm okay. It's of no use. Bhagavad Gita is to be read very, very patiently and understood very, very patiently. Okay? So that's our Swami Srila Prabhupada. Now, with this person writing this book, can you imagine what would be that book is? Who has so much love for the world to want to give something which can make their life perfect. He was not a fanatic saint, or a fanatic so-called Hindu or things like that. It's not that he wanted to give a knowledge to somebody who can actually develop a love for God and who can actually develop a love for themselves. Nowadays people are not loving themselves. Huh? So he really wanted to develop that for all of us, and that's what he did. And that is why he wrote this particular book, and that's why he called it as Bhagavad Gita as it is, because he said very clearly that I am not adding anything in this book. I am just explaining what Krishna told in Bhagavad Gita. Can you imagine, there are so many authors who wrote Bhagavad Gita translation, but none of them glorifies Krishna like Srila Prabhupada. I guarantee you, if you read this book cover to cover, you will fall in love with Krishna. You will fall in love with Krishna. There is no other question. There is no other doubt. But if you read someone else's Bhagavad Gita, you may wonder who Krishna is. Because they did not give that importance to the person who spoke Bhagavad Gita. Krishna spoke Bhagavad Gita. They talk about there is some unknown, there is some light and this and that. And no, Krishna spoke Bhagavad Gita. We all know it's a history. Right? And that is why he wrote this book as Bhagavad Gita as it is. He did not put his own adulterated thing in it. He gave what was given by Krishna. So we are receiving as it is. Okay, that's why this name is Bhagavad Gita as it is. And all the Americans, I'll end with this last point. Yeah, 1 minute. So I'll end with this last point. Is Srila Prabhupada was very much appreciated by the Americans, because at that time all these elderly people were so concerned about their younger generation. So this is the true end of the movie of Hare Rama, Hare Krishna. So all these hippies, they gave up LSD. They started wearing clothes. They started getting married. And they did not had extramarital affairs. They forget about giving up the LSD and whiskey and this and that. They gave up tea and coffee as well, because it has a caffeine in it, which makes you addicted. Even, isn't it? सुबह का चाय नहीं मिला तो अरे यार सर चकरा रहा है, चाय किधर है? They gave up tea as well. And not just that, they become sannyasis. Can you imagine, from hippie? So once a reporter asked Srila Prabhupada that can you show us magic? Because many of us have this impression, you go and meet a sadhu or somebody, thoda magic dikhao yaar. Huh? Prabhupada said, I did the most important magic is I made hippies into happies. All the hippies became happy. And they led a life of integrity, led a life of full of satisfaction and full of happiness. And if you are sincere to read Bhagavad Gita along in this group, I guarantee you that you will also become happy and satisfied fully. There is no doubt about that. All of us are experiencing, isn't it? Everyone is looking for experience in this world. Why there are so many restaurants outside? To give you some experience. There is a restaurant on the sky, right? There is something in Gujarat, in Rajkot or somewhere, like, they take you in the, like, some kind of thing and put you in the air, and that's where you have these, like, your food. Experience. You pay money, right? There are people who want to go into the space. There is a hell lot of money. You got to be a millionaire to go to the space, right? It's not going to the moon. There are people buying a land on the moon. That's a different story. But in reality, they take you to the space and millions of dollars. Why you want to spend so much? Experience, right? So we want to give this wonderful experience. Please try it with us. Please don't miss out. If you have something important, it's okay for one of the Saturdays you meet. But I humbly request, please try to come as many Saturdays as possible and live this journey, have this experience together with all of us. My humble request. And believe me, it will be an experience that will help you for the rest of your life. Okay? So with that, we'll end here today. If anybody has any quick comments or questions, because we are running out of the time, that's the reason I'm saying quick comments or questions, and then we'll have a small prayer, and then we'll have prasad for everybody. So any comments in terms of, like, are you okay with this kind of format? Is it working with everybody? It's fine? Yeah? It's good? Any suggestions, then please do share with us. And please make sure, if you have not given your numbers, my humble request, please give. We guarantee we are not going to give you any forwards or anything. It will be about this program, and you will also get the recording in that WhatsApp as well. So we want to make sure that you get the required information. That's the whole reason we are going to take this number. We are not sharing with anyone else. We are not any, like, data entity or anything where you want to share it or any of that sort. So please do share your number if you have not done so far, so that for your benefit, so that you'll get to know about what is being discussed and everything else. Okay? So any thoughts, any questions, any suggestions, please do share. Okay, so I don't want to, force you guys to share anything, but feel free to meet any one of us here, after this is over, during the prasad and everything. We'll be more than happy to have those discussions offline as well. Okay, and if anybody has questions and this, they can post into the WhatsApp group, but it's only admin, right? Otherwise, people will start forwarding. So we don't want to do that. But then we have a number in that particular thing, right? On the card we have given. So on that, on a personal chat, you can share your thoughts, any suggestions, or any questions also you may have. Then you please do share, and we'll definitely address that in our next session. Okay. So with that, we'll start with the Narasimha prayers. Yeah.